Hi everyone, welcome to KSR Data Vision Snowflake program. Here we are to discuss on Snowflake Virtual Warehouse Concepts and detailed information about it. Okay, so on screen you can see it's a virtual warehouse overview and little bit of detailed information also we will see. Okay, before we jump into today's agenda, we have published a few other Snowflake concept videos, especially on architecture and other unique features. Okay, so I would request you to kindly go through that sessions for better understanding of this virtual warehouse concepts. It's kind of like I don't really call it as a prerequisite, but it's better to understand. Anyway, I'll touch upon the points in this agenda, but it's better to see that videos prior to this will give a better understanding to you. So, well, we will move on to today's agenda. Okay. So, what is warehouse or a compute resource in a Snowflake? So, when we see, right, so what happens in a usual world, right? So we acquire all the warehouses, we acquire a lot of servers and all. So we need, according to the data storage, are acquiring a number of power of this one. So you need a compute source. Compute is nothing but a power. It's a powerhouse that whatever you have to run something. To run that something, we need a compute resources, right? So compute or this resources will give you a lot of power to run whatever the queries you find, or you want to fetch some information from somewhere, or you have to see some other details. Right? So it's something, it's called the powerhouse of a servers, we can call it. Okay, so let's read what we have written on a slide. In Snowflake, to run anything, you need a compute resource, which is nothing but a virtual warehouse. You are going to compute something, you are going to fire something which needs in a compute, so that all will be accommodated by a single resources part as in a virtual warehouse. Okay. Actually, this would be the very first thing you have to set up once you set up your account, right? So what happens is once you have an account handy, and then what you have a tables, everything is ready. Okay, either tables is not ready also, right? So even though if you don't have a virtual warehouse, if you run any query without this power, you can't hit the queries. You have to have this warehouse to hit the databases. Right? So you can see on a bottom side, right? So whatever the database storage is happened. When you want to fetch some information out of it, you need the main, that whatever the computes you are seeing in a blue color, this is mandatorily needed to hit the database warehouses. Okay. So what is data warehouses, right? So in a general layman term, we would have been heard this in on-premise side, or we would have seen it in an Oracle, cloud side. So this is also in Snowflake, it is also going to be the same thing. That's nothing but a cluster of computing resources. Okay, so that's called servers. So we will have a lot of servers. We will build with the different configurations, with the high configurations, with the vertical scalability or a horizontal scalability of the resources, right? So this all warehouse is nothing but a cluster of a computing resources. Okay, so again I have to repeat the point. So it's the first thing we need to have it on an account. To fetch any information, if you want to load some data also, you need this resources, this virtual warehouse. Okay. So in next slide, we see what is warehouse. Okay. Sorry. In next slide, what is warehouse and a compute resource, right? So the same concept we have go a little bit, in detail of here. So how this power really comes, right? So what exactly the warehouse provides once you have it in on a system. All right. So what happens is warehouse is a combination of resources. So it will have a CPU with all the power, to compute the queries you have filed, saying that I need this data from this table. So CPU will understand how much resource utilization you need, or how much power you need to run that one, and which are all the servers it has to execute. So all this, processing unit things will happen on a CPU level. Temporary storage. So what happens is storage. Why temporary storage we need for the virtual warehouse, right? So what happens is whenever the warehouse start executing on the query you find, so it will start storing the intermediate results. Okay, so example, I would say that we have to do an aggregation on one of the column. Okay, and it with the different partitions of data, or example, different countries where we want to do a aggregation. partition on a country, and then you have to do an aggregation on a certain level. Okay, so in that case, what happens is if the particular partition is been already aggregated, okay, that intermediate data will get stored in this temporary storage. Okay, and then finally this all intermediate results will get clubbed, and then the final output will come to us. Okay, and one more thing we need to understand with this temporary storage is, as soon as the warehouse is suspended or off or switched off, right, that temporary storage will get wiped off. Okay, so this temporary storage is named it as a temporary. Until the warehouse runs, that storage will get, that intermediate results will be stored in that. As soon as the final output is being revealed, that particular intermediate results will get wiped off. And the next one is a memory. So memory, I would say, is it has to understand. So in storage also, what happens is this memory is nothing but a cache. So the kind of a cache applies on a warehouse. So what happens on this cache is, so the intermediate results are storing. So it has to understand where and all it is getting stored. So literally would say this storage also happens under cloud itself. So this memory, what it will happen, it will keep everything it from a storage. Once it uplifts from the storage, it will keep everything on in memory to club all the partitions data to push the final output. Okay, so these are the three major things which will be provided by the virtual warehouse. And also whoever is trying to give a SnowPro certification, you could expect one question out of it. So I don't say it's surely it will come, but there is a maximum chances you will get one of the question out of this operation. So okay. And next one is why these warehouses are needed, right? For what operations we need these warehouses. Okay, so for any operations, you want to load some data. You have some files has been provided by the client or the third parties. So you want to load the data into the tables. Okay, or you want to do some transformations and you have to load it into your different tables, or any analytical queries you have executed. Okay, or you have a streaming process, or any kind of operations, executions, operations you have to perform in a Snowflake, you need virtual warehouse. And this virtual warehouse are massively parallel processing. Okay, so we will understand little more about what is this massively parallel processing concept here, right? On right side, you could see, the Snowflake follows a multi-clustered shared data concept. Okay, what that means, in traditional warehouses like an Oracle or a Netezza or a MySQL, evolved into a Hadoop, right? All these traditional warehouses, what exactly it follows is either it follows a shared disk. That means there will be only one storage area, and all the clusters built on top of it for processing will access the same storage area. Okay, so in this cases, what will happen is there will be a concurrency issues happen. So example, there is a table called as a customer. So a person called user A, what happened is he's fetched, okay, I need the customers in this country. So what will happen is he'll lock that customer table. If other person has tried to fetch the same data from the table, so what happens is this will wait until the resource is available, or if the table is being accessing by a multiple users concurrently, then what will happen is the table might go under lock. So again, we know the struggle of unlocking the table, right? So we have to reach out, you have to wait for a certain period of time for unlocking or refreshing, or you have to reach out to the DBS to get it unlocked. Okay, and little advanced concept called as a shared nothing architecture. So what is shared nothing architecture is, here the storage will be decentralized. It's not like only into a one storage. So they will have a different storages. Okay, and in this storages, what will happen is that certain amount of data will get loaded into this each storage. Okay, and a separate compute node. So there is no interconnections between a node to node or a storage to storage. Okay, so whenever the user try to access the data, it will communicate to that particular server, and then what will happen is the data resides into only the node that data will be given back to the customer. Okay, so in this scenarios, what happens is, so you won't be having a data at a one place. So what it will happen is the processing time is going to be very high, or the way the data is distributed is also very limited. Okay, so to overcome all these issues, Snowflake came up with an advanced architecture based nothing but a multi-cluster shared data. Okay, so here what happens, data will be centralized at a one place. Okay, and you have a scale out process. Scale out process is nothing but if there are multiple users are came into scene and trying to query the data from the database. So what happens is Snowflake automatically bump ups all its clusters based on the auto scale configuration you have set, and it will try to fetch all the data which is needed with no latency, and it provides the data to the user. Okay, and here if you see, there is no kind of dependencies between a cluster to cluster. So what happens is all clusters have an access to the centralized data. So any cluster you trigger, it have an access to trigger or fetch the data from the centralized database. Okay, so in this way, either your users increased, either you have running a complex query. Okay, so your Snowflake can able to provide the resources to fetch the results in a faster way. Okay, so that's a very good overcome, and the whole power comes from this concept called as a multi-cluster and shared data. Moving to the next slide. So in warehouses, right? So warehouses, we have a different sizes of warehouses Snowflake provides. Why we need a different warehouse sizes, right? So we need to understand. So what happens is usually we will see there are some developers or some analysts or some campaign teams. So what they do means they will write hundreds of lines of code, or there would be tens of tables being joined. Okay, tens of complex case statements or a lead lag statements are different lag different functions, user defined functions has been written. So what happens is in that case, right, if you are going to use the same consistent power to run that one, to read all the data from your data stage, uplift it and process it, right, so it is going to take a very much time, right? So to overcome that issue, okay, what happened is Snowflake came up with a warehouse sizes. Okay, so example, there is 100 lines of code, very complex code has been, SQL code has been written, and we have to execute that. Okay, we know it's a complex code. Then what I'll do is, yeah, I assume, okay, large warehouse is something will be a sufficient for me, because it is having a 10 tables of join I am doing, or a 20 tables of join I am doing, right? So you no need to assume actually. So what you can do is you can set your warehouse as a X small, run your query, how much time it is taking up. In second day, you change it to the small and identify what is taking. Just run through the each execution with one, and you feel which one is better and which your company really able to spend the money on it, right? So based on the credits, so you can choose and you can get a very faster results out of it, and your business also runs fast if you have the results handy. Okay, so that's where your warehouse t-shirts will be very much helpful. Okay, and this is the box, and this pivot explains that what are the sizes we have for now. That is starting from the X small to we have 4X large sizes we have, and the credits are the servers provided for the each cluster. So that means this warehouse size is small, you will get a one server out of it and one cluster, and you will get a two servers. Okay, and one cluster. Okay, for each cluster how many servers it is going to, you will get it based on the selection you have. And credits, so how many credits you are going to be charged for the the type of warehouse you have choose, and what is the amount you're going to be charged in a dollars for each second. Okay, so it is always recommended to test your query with each warehouse, and wherever you are satisfied, that one you can make it as a consistently going forward as a BAU. Okay, business as usual execution of your queries. An increase in t-shirt size, access to 4SL despite an increase in CPU as well. So as we discussed, servers is going to increase. That means CPU is going to increase, your memory is going to increase, and your temporary storage is also going to be increased, because you are going to execute a very complex queries, right? So to fetch the very faster results, you can increase your warehouse. Okay, and you can start and stop the warehouse anytime as Snowflake storage and the computing are loosely coupled, right? So this is a very beautiful point to understand. So just going back to the on-premise, right? So what happens is your DB team as expected, or your developer teams or your business team expected, there is a lot more data is going to come up, because due to multiple reasons, a new product has been introduced, or a new channels. Example, if it's a telecom, right, new channels has been increased, and we know that the customer base is going to be increased, are people going to watch that, our IPL is going to run. right? So a lot of people is going to watch that. So we have to have all the stats with us. So they will expect that, okay, this month there is a lot of data is going to come up. We have to increase our servers, right? So in on-premise, what happens is unnecessarily you are not sure how much storage you have to increase. So what we will do is, okay, on an assumption or a previous stats, what we'll do is, okay, bump up it to 20 TB. Okay, ideally you don't need 20 TB. All you need is like probably a 10 TB, but you have to spend money acquiring a 20 TB, right? So you're unnecessarily spending money, or else you acquired a 20 TB but you need a 25 TB. So another 5 TB of configuring, right? So if you want to configure some storage in on-premise is a very big task, right? So you have to have a run book, you have to have a plan at least for a 1 month. If you are so stringently your work, you need at least have a 1 month to run it. Okay, and you have to talk to the people, you have to bring down the system, you need a separate team for that, and team has to do a lot of validation, lot of configuration settings and validations and warranty support for that. So there is a lot of stuff you need to do if you want to onboard some storage, right? And if you are increasing storage, you definitely have to increase your compute power as well. That means you have to increase your CPU power, RAM, right? So else there is a large volume of storage, but you have a very minimum of your computing. You hit the whole storage, it will get confused where it has to go, where it has to pick, where it has to scan the tables, right? So that's a very big problem in them on-premise. But in Snowflake or in any other cloud areas as well, I'm pointing it out. So they are loosely coupled. So that means if you want storage, you increase storage. You don't need to increase the computing. Okay, it's totally your wish. Or you want to increase the computing, you just increase the computing. You don't need to increase the storage. You save the money either way. Or if you want to increase both, you can increase both. Okay, so it gives a very much flexibility wherever you want to increase your either storage or a computing. So it's a loosely coupled. Based on your requirement, you can increase either storage or a computing or both. Okay, so next slide says how to create a multi-cluster warehouse. Okay, before we go into a multi-cluster warehouse, right, I just want to show one diagram here. So in this diagram, we will understand what is a warehouse and what is a multi-cluster warehouse. Okay, so we will think, we'll take one example. Okay, so there is a person, he's an analyst. Okay, he has to run some lot of campaigns data to understand what's running and what kind of example who are churning out customers, right? So let's understand churning out customers. He has to run through the product, understand who are the people and which month they have to go, they are going out of the company. How can we retain those customers? What is the reason? What is the NPS score they have given? So he has to run a lot of analytics. So that means he might be running a very large queries. Okay, but it is going to be a one query or a 5 queries or a one few views he has created, and this views he has to run it. Okay, so it's going to be very complex ways he has to going to run it. Okay. So in that cases, what you have to do is, so probably he might be in on-premise, he might be running with a very small warehouse or very small compute. He moved into a Snowflake. In Snowflake also, he was not sure what warehouse size he has to use. He has used a small, and then he's running, and it is running for hours and hours. Okay, then he understand, yeah, my query is very complex, lot of tables it has to scan. Okay, and it has to fetch a lot of amount of data. Okay, it understand that, and he moved it into a large warehouse. So what happens to the large warehouse, right? So what it will do means it will add an extra servers. We have seen in a previous slide, it will add an extra servers. What it will do means it will start reading the data into a multiple tables at a one go, full scan, uplift the data. Okay, this query is what it will do is it will start running whole query in memory, because you have a lot of servers and CPU, because you increase the warehouse size, right? So you can see in the first box, it increases the number of servers inside a one cluster, and then what it will do means it will give a power compute to run that query and fetch the results. Okay, in case in other way, what is multi-cluster warehouse, right? Different from the warehouse. Okay. So a combination of multiple large warehouse. Okay, based on, if like that there is a 10 analysts are trying to run it. Okay, so they have a 10 complex queries are there. Okay, so in that case, what we need, everyone needs a one warehouse. We can't create a each warehouse for each single person, and monitoring that will be a very much hectic task for us, right? So in that case, what we will do is we will create a multi-cluster warehouses. So what this multi-cluster warehouses will do is, for each query, it will auto scale, or it will provide that whatever the warehouse you have selected. Okay, and then it will provide for each query, it will provide that particular amount of warehouse to run that particular query and fetch the results as faster as this one, as a single cluster. Okay, this one is when you have a single complex queries and you are going to consistently run that one, so you better go with a one large warehouse. Okay, or if you think that there are a multiple users are there and everyone has to get the consistency of the speed, so then you create the multi-cluster warehouse and give that warehouse details to them. They can run this one, and multi-cluster warehouse, what it do means it automatically bumps up. Okay, that's where this diagram shows. If you see that when there is when we are running a one query, or when we onboarded this one, so what it will happen is it is running only one warehouse, medium warehouse. As soon as there are multiple queries started hitting this multiple warehouse, what it will do means it will scale out. It will scale out, and it will provide a multiple, it will onboard the multiple warehouses, and it will start giving the power to the each warehouse to run at the same speed as a large warehouse it is being you know um, onboarded there. Okay, so this scale out concept is nothing but scale out and scaling. Scaling is nothing but it's a opposite to the scale out. So as soon as the number of the queries, the number of the queries quantity is reduced, then what will happen is automatically it comes to the normal. As soon as there is no queries, so that means there is no cluster and no warehouse will be onboarded, and it is an auto suspect. Okay, so this multi-cluster warehouse will provide you a multiple configurations that we will see in the previous slide. So if you see here, at a time of creation, you can provide the size. Okay, it will give you a what level of size you want to start with. Okay, and multi-cluster attributes, enterprise and above, and scaling policies. Okay, this multi-cluster warehouse is available only enterprise and above editions. It is not there in the standard. Okay, so I'll show that in next slides or next demo. I'll show why it is not there and why from only from the enterprise edition they have given, because it needs a lot of credits. Okay, standard is going to be free, or it's going to be a very less minimal queries execution, something like that you need to execute. So it is available only after the with at enterprise and above enterprise. And scaling policy also. So if whenever you open a warehouse, right, so you will see this one. So for multi-warehouse, you have to name it. What is the multi-warehouse? You want to name the warehouse, and you have to select what is the size of it, and maximum clusters and a minimum clusters. Okay, so that means minimum when the warehouse is started, start with one. As soon as if you are getting a many queries, you can bump up to two. Okay, you think there are going to be hundreds of queries are going to come up, so you can give maximum is the 10 here. Okay, you can give a 10 maximum cluster. So what will happen is based on the amount of queries is hitting this warehouse, it auto scales. Okay, auto scales to 10, and it will give power to all the queries to execute without any latency. Okay, that's what he's saying. Multi-cluster warehouse improves the query throughput for a high concurrency workloads. Okay, and minimum cluster, the number of active clusters will vary between the specified minimum and maximum values based on the number of concurrent user queries. Okay, that means you start with one, your maximum is 10. So at first minute there are 100 queries, all 10 will get recorded, and later 50 is completed, this will reduce to the 5, and again your 30 is completed, it will reduce to 2, and only 10 is there, your minimum cluster can able to accommodate it. Okay, based on that it will vary, and you no need to do any action here. All you need to do is you need to configure this, what level you need this configuration to be set up, and everything will be taken care by your multi-cluster. Okay, and scaling policies are two policies are the standard and economy policies. So both policies will take as per the requirement, you can set it accordingly. So as soon as the cluster is the queries are there, you want to onboard it in a new cluster, or you want to put a pressure on the existing cluster itself, let it run and then onboard if it is going to be a more time it is taking. So this scaling policies will provide two types. One is a standard and another one is an economy. Okay, auto suspend. So the default value is 10 minutes. What this auto suspend is, if there are no queries are going to hit this warehouse, so what it will happen is it auto suspends in a 10 minutes. It will check for the idle time of 10 minutes. If there is nothing querying on this warehouse, it will simply suspend and it will save a cost file. Okay, auto resume. So it clicks, we need to mark this. Okay, so it's not mandatory to mark this. So if you mark this, what will happen is after auto suspended, if there is any query calls this warehouse to execute, so it automatically resumes. Okay, so example, if you think that you have only 10 queries, you think that the 10 queries can complete in a 2 minutes. Okay, then you no need to set this auto suspend for 10 minutes. Why you want to keep your warehouse active for the 10 minutes? You know that it is going to just use this warehouse used for the 10 queries and it will complete in 2 minutes. Then what you can do is just you can keep this auto suspend for 2 minutes. As soon as you are active for 2 minutes, and it will check for the another 2 minutes idle time, and it will suspend and it will save a lot of cost. Okay, and this is in a SQL. Whoever is comfortable with the console, they can set with the console, and whoever is comfortable with the SQL, or if they want to set up it from outside of the Snowflake, right? So that means either via SnowSQL or from a different ETLs or different third-party tools, they can run this alter statements or a create statements to have this warehouses created based on the permissions they have on their user. So this one we discussed just now. And in warehouses, right, in multi-cluster warehouses, there are two modes we have. Okay, so this is for the concurrency scaling. Okay, so what happened, we just in this setting, if you think that I have given minimum clusters as 10 and maximum clusters as 10. Okay, so when this warehouse is triggered, the minimum clusters are 10. That means it, as soon as the warehouse is triggered, it will onboard 10 clusters for you. And the maximum also you're going to mention the same number, 10. That means this warehouse is going to run always with the 10 clusters. Okay, so when you will do that, right? So there are some business queries which needs a very quick results and which needs a very quick KPIs to run it, and probably a real-time analytics they want to do it and to run the business, right? So some agents wants to understand what is running. Okay, so in that case, you will go with a maximized mode. So what is nothing but a maximized mode? When you give your minimum clusters and a maximum clusters with the same number what you need. So your multi-cluster is going to onboard your all maximum clusters, and it will start giving the high power to that queries to execute as soon as it is to be completed and provides the results back to the customers. Okay, the another mode is auto scale mode. So auto scale mode we discussed just now. So right now the configuration is also into an auto scale mode. That is a minimum cluster is 1 and maximum clusters is 2. Okay, so auto scale mode is nothing but, so there is a queries coming up. Okay, so what happened, one query is running with this warehouse. Yeah, one cluster is there. Suddenly what happened is we got a 10 queries hit at that warehouse. So what it will do is it will auto scale, right? So it auto scales to 2 clusters, and 2 clusters will start running all your queries. Okay, so this auto scale is also, and it's a dynamic auto scaling. So you no need to do anything. All you need to do is what maximum and what minimum auto scaling you needed. That numbers you need to provide automatically. Multi-cluster able to understand it auto scales when the query hits. Many queries or a single query hits that warehouse. Okay, and the next point says warehouse size can be modified even if it is running in a running state. Okay, provided the new change will only be applicable for the newly queued queries, and all existing queries will still use the old config. So what that means is you are started running your queries, and this warehouse is also active and it is running. Okay, and you think that okay, there are some more queries is going to come and hit this warehouse, or already some queries are in queue which hits this warehouse. You think that you want to bump up this clusters, so from 2 to 5 I need to bump up. Okay, what you do is you will just go to the console, or you will run this alert statement. What you'll do is you will change this clusters, okay, to 3 or 5. What happens, whatever the queries which is already running with this warehouse, right, that queries will still using the existing warehouse size, that is warehouse clusters. So whatever is going to come and hit this warehouse, okay, after the existing one completes, so that will get the maximum, the one you change, the maximum number of clusters you change, that the new change will applicable to the newly coming queries or the queued queries. Okay, that's what this point says. Okay, in this slide is especially for the people who are giving the Snowflake SnowPro certification. You can expect one question out of this one. So I'll try to put a lot of details here, try to understand, put little more concentration on this one. So here, the thing is, the effect of changing the maximum and minimum clusters for a running warehouse depends on whether it is running in a maximized or a auto scale mode, right? We just discussed there are two modes. One is a maximized disk mode and another one is a auto scale mode, right? So when you will change it, right? So when you observe there is something, there is some latency you have seen and some queries is going to be queued and it is not running, waiting for the resources, then you will understand saying that, yeah, I have to change these numbers, or I have to make it as a little auto scale mode so that I can save little money over there, or I want to give a maximum prioritization this queries to execute it, right? So you will understand the behavior and you will take a decision of making the relevant changes on your multi-cluster. Okay, so if you see here in the maximize modes and the auto scale mode, there are different conditions. I don't say different condition, different behavior we'll understand. Okay, so the maximum and minimum increased. Okay, that means I increase the number of the maximum and minimum. So what happens is specified number of the clusters auto start immediately. Okay, so when in a maximized mode, that means 10 and 10 minimum. Okay, our example 10 is the maximum. So let's take example 5 and 5 is already existing. Okay, and your queries are running. So you understand still that power is not enough for me. Okay, so what you do is you will increase it to 10 and 10. Okay, so what this multi-cluster will understand, right? The customer wants the required queries to be maximized right now. Okay, that means what it will do means, even though the queries which are running already, right, for that it will start giving the maximum power. That means you increase the power, that means you increase the clusters. You start giving the maximum clusters as soon as immediately you change that one, and it will make that queries to execute faster and give the results to you. Okay, when you increase the number for a maximum and minimum, immediately it launches the clusters for you. Okay, when you decrease, okay, when you decrease the clusters, okay, that means the maximum and minimum what you have given is 5, so now you reduce it to 3. Okay, so what will happen is the existing clusters, okay, the specified number of clusters shut down when they finish the executing statements and auto suspend period elapses. Okay, so what that means is, so if there are some queries which is already running, okay, with the maximum numbers you have given, and you reduce that number, so what it will do means it will not reduce the clusters as soon as you have changed it. What it will understand is, it will understand, let the complete the executing statements already. Once that statements are completed, then you go ahead and then reduce the clusters you are going to reduce, so that whatever you ideally taken a decision to run it faster, so it will give you the results and it will go into an auto suspend mode, and once the results are completed, then it will reduce your clusters. Okay, so it is very important to understand the difference between the increasing minimum max and reducing the minimum max. Okay, and in an auto scale method, okay, auto scale method, what will happen is, auto scale is nothing but for maximum and minimum there will be a different numbers. Okay, it starts with 1, it can go up to 10, or it starts with 2 minimum, it can go up to 10. Okay, so what happens in auto scale method, right? So if you increase the max, think that if you are increased the from 5 to 10, okay, the newly maxed clusters are greater than running clusters. Okay, that means you are changed to 10. Okay, but your queries are already running with only 5 or a 2. Okay, that means you don't need extra power here, right? So what happening is, your whatever the queries you have or executed, it is started utilizing what you have given already. You don't need an extra power here. Okay, so then what will happen, multi-cluster will understand no changes until the additional clusters are needed, right? So until additional clusters are needed, when it will be needed, when you get more queries hitted on the warehouse. Okay, that means when your new clusters are less than the running clusters, right, then what will happen is it automatically increases your clusters, and it will start giving the power to the queries which are newly coming or appearing to the warehouse. Okay, that's nothing but increasing the max. Okay, decreasing the max. Okay, that means The new max clusters are your reduced it. Then your running clusters. That means you are already running that needs a 5 cluster you had previously, and it is running with the 5 clusters. And then what you have done is you reduced from 5 clusters to 3 clusters. 3 is the max you have given. That means your queries will get confused, right? Your queries can't get the enough power, right? Then what will happen is excess clusters shut down when they finish the executing statements. That means it will not immediately reduce and make your queries to confuse that where I'll get the power and how can I fetch the results if you reduce like this, right? So what it will do is it will you make use of the existing clusters, okay, and it will complete its executions. Okay, and based on the scaling policy, I mean whatever the scaling policy you mentioned, that is either it is an economy or a standard, right? So it will come down to the clusters whatever you have mentioned, the less number than previous number. Okay, so it will wait for the queries to be completed. Okay, that's a major point or a point to understand which needs for the Snowflake certification. Okay, next one is you increase the minimum. Okay, that means your new minimum clusters are greater than running clusters, right? So what will happen is minimum clusters you mentioned it as a 3. Okay, your running clusters are just a 2 or it is running. Okay, so what you need to you are expecting is there is something going to come up. So that's the reason I increased my minimum clusters now. Okay, so I will say multi-cluster, you don't take a decision. I'm saying that minimum is the 3 clusters you have to start. Okay, then what will happen is multi-cluster will understand additional clusters immediately started to meet the minimum. Okay, that means you bumped up the minimum from 1 to 3 automatically. Immediately after the configuration you save it, automatically it will add the additional clusters to it. Okay, and the next one is you reduce the minimum. That means you had 5 was the minimum clusters you started. Okay, then what happened is you reduced it to 3. Okay, it is 3 is less than your running clusters. That means your running clusters are already running with the 5, right? So but you reduced it to 3, so that is not sufficient for the running clusters. So what it will do, the excess clusters shut down when the existing query statements are completed. Okay, and the scaling policy conditions you met. The scaling policy is a standard or a economy. Okay, we discussed a bit about standard economy. So based on the scaling policy and the executing query, it will wait for until the statements are completed, then it will go off with the minimum clusters whatever you have given. Okay. Now we will check a little bit of how and how to create, how to alter um, warehouses, and how where we can see that, and what is how can you define that one, right? So this is the Snowflake Console. Okay, as soon as you register, you can have a trial version. You'll get it from Snowflake for 30 days. You no need to give any credit card or anything for this. Simply all it needs is your Gmail, and you have to register for that. Okay. So as soon as you get account created for you, when you are open, you see this page. Okay, so this page is something like a new page, so where you can see a lot of documentation stuff and everything. This console UI has been little bit changed. I'm little bit and little bit familiar with are always acquainted to the classic console. So I'll go to the classic console. All you need to do is you need to select classic console, and it will pop up another screen where you just need to log in. Okay, so once you go into a console, there is nothing changes between your new console and the old console. It is going to be exactly same, the backend services and everything, just the UI is changed. Okay, so in this you will see this console. On this console, on top layer, you can see these databases, shares, marketplace, warehouses. This is what we just discussed, warehouses, and worksheet where you want to run the queries, and a history. What are the queries you has been done? How much time it has taken? What is the load frequency it has taken? So all you can monitor here. And account is your account details, either an account admin or something. These are all the extra features. Okay, going forward, we'll start discussing this one. Okay, and here you get all your account details. Okay, you get your details, whether it is a standard edition or it is an enterprise edition. You take enterprise editions, and all the Snowflake accounts are will be created on top of a cloud. Okay, while creating account, you can choose either you want it on a GCP or AWS, or you want it on Azure, and you can select what reason is that. Okay, if reason, always go with wherever you are near. Okay, so that there won't be any latency, or it will be quick for you to fetch the results. Okay, On the left hand side, you see all these are DBs. Okay, so Snowflake and Snowflake sample data will be given by Snowflake team itself to just run some queries to acquaintate with how can run the queries, how to use the resources. This DB I have created. So in every DB there will be a schemas. Under schemas you will see a tables and views will be created. Okay, so this is very high level. So to just see warehouses, right? Let's go into the warehouses. So once I click the warehouses, you will go into this prompt. Yeah, so once you click into warehouses, you'll go at compute_wh warehouse. This is given by Snowflake team. Okay, so now what we can do is we will create one warehouse for us. Okay, so this is a warehouse. So what I'll do is I'll create one dummy warehouse. Okay, dummy warehouse. I'll select some X small for this. So you can select anything. You can see the drop down is very clear. How many credits it's going to use per hour. So based on that, you can assume that how much amount it is going to cost you to select this one. So there is so flexibility over here. Okay? And auto suspend by default it is 10 minutes, right? So if there is no action going to happen on this warehouse, it automatically suspends. Okay, so I'll select 1 minute for this or 5 minutes for this. Okay, so and auto resume, as soon as any new query come into the live and it hit this warehouse, it automatically resumes. You don't need to take any manual action. Okay, so comments you can add. So if this warehouse, I will say that okay, this warehouse is creating for marketing thing, right? So you can add anything. So once this you can create in console. Okay, so whoever is familiar with a SQL, right? So all they need to do is create SQL. Okay, just copy the SQL. If you want to run it via any third-party tool, or if you want to run via SQL, this one you can run it. Or this is a very simple command. You can see you will get it in a Snowflake documentation as well. All you need to select SQL and you can run it on this. So for now, I'm closing it. I'm finished. So you can see it started creating. Okay, so currently it is in a suspend mode. So if I click here, you can see it is in a suspend mode. So sorry, it's in a resume mode. As soon as I onboard it, it's resume. Okay, so I can start using this one. Okay, so we will start using it. So if you want to see configurations, you can see click configuration. You can see what the configuration you have set. Okay, and then if you want to remove this one, you just need to remove drop. Just in drop warehouse, it will go off. Okay, a transfer ownership. Now right now I have it in account admin. You want to move it to the some other system admin or to some other user, you can transfer this ownership as well. Okay, let's see some commands on a warehouse. Okay, so now I want to see what are all the warehouses. So before we go into this commands, so this is the one of the important thing you need to understand. We call it as context. Okay, in this context you can select what role you are going to run it. And warehouse also, what warehouses you see here, it is already came up into drop down that what we have created previously. So I'll select dummy as this one. And database, which database you want to run, you can select whichever the database you want to run. So you selected a database schema. Inside schema, you need to go information schema, or you need to have public schema, or you need to have marketing schema. You can create how many schemas. So for now, I'm creating a public. Okay. So you can select warehouse here, or what you can do is you can write a use warehouse and you can mention that warehouse name as well. So right, so what I'll do is I don't select warehouse. So I have used a compute here. Okay, so now if you see here, what it is showing is it is a compute warehouse, right? So what I'll do is I will run this warehouse. Okay, and let's see the result. Okay, I changed the warehouse. You see automatically it's changed to dummy. Okay, you can write a command also, or you can change it from context as well. Okay, now I want to see what are all the warehouses are there. Okay, so I'll just go click show warehouses. You see there are two warehouses, and currently the state of the warehouse, this is suspended and this is started. Both are in a standard policy that we have discussed in the previous slides. And size of it, okay, running right now, anything queued, I mean any queries are running on this warehouse or anything is queued. Okay, so by default these are all some default configurations. Auto suspend is a 600 seconds and 300 seconds. Auto resume is also selected as a true, right? So now I want to select this warehouse command. I need to do only specific type of warehouses, right? So all I need to do is you just click this one, write a like operator, and you need only compute, so you'll get a compute. Okay, now think you have to create a warehouse using a command. So now I'm creating a one more warehouse using this one. If you see dummy_1, so all I need to do is trigger this one. So what you are going to give warehouse as a XML, warehouse type you want to standard policy is standard, and auto suspend is for 300 seconds, auto resume is true, and comment is an optional if you want to do it, or if you don't want, it's fine. It's done. So let's go in warehouse, see that it is created. Okay, and it's in an active stage. As soon as you create it, it will turn up into an active stage. If you want to change it, so example of what I would say is, so I'll suspend this one. So all you need to do is suspend. So it is no more active and there is no more money for it, right? So go back to the worksheets. So there is a warehouse started. So you thought that 300 was not sufficient for auto suspend, or you want to reduce to the 100, right? So all you need to do is reduce it by altering it. Okay, dummy underscore one, alter. Warehouse also you don't need. If you want to change from X small to small, you can change it. All you need to do is alter it. Okay, so I altered it. Go back to the stage. Okay, see this one, this dummy one. It was X small before, now changed to small. Okay, auto suspend was 6 minutes, right? Previously, and I changed it to the 1 minute 40 seconds, right? So that's how you can run it. Okay, and if you want to see when your warehouse is created, you want to describe a little bit about this one, right? So you can check like this. So when it is created, name of it, what kind of it is, what kind of object it is. It is a warehouse. It is showing it as a warehouse. So multi-cluster warehouses, right? So if I go to the, I'm right now into a standard. So you can see I'm into a standard. So as I mentioned in the slides, right now we don't have, standard is not giving any kind of, I could say, sorry, I could say right now it's not giving any multi-cluster feasibility for us. Okay, so if you need a multi-cluster, you have to go with an enterprise edition or above to it. So to just identify, how can I identify what is a multi-cluster, what is a warehouse, right? When you click create, so you're not going to see any kind of, maximum, minimum, or auto scaling policies, right? That we have seen in the slide. So in this slide, you see here, we have a maximum clusters, minimum cluster, scaling policies. So if you're not seeing this, all three is nothing but a multi-cluster. Okay, so that's what we are not seeing here. So it's just a warehouse. It's not a multi-cluster warehouse. Okay, so that's how you can able to identify. So in case if you want to create, you are into enterprise edition and you want to create a multi-cluster warehouse. So all you need to do is you have to mention create like this, who are familiar with the SQL, or they can go into warehouses and create like this. What we are going to do, warehouse size, warehouse type, is it is a standard or economy, or auto suspend for 300 seconds, auto resume true, minimum clusters is 1 and maximum clusters is 5, and scaling policy is a standard. Okay, so if you want to alter something similar way that how we have altered in a warehouse, you can, you can alter in a similar way. Okay, so now we have executed a lot of queries. We want to see what all the queries has been executed. So you can go to history, you can understand here what are the queries executed, what are the warehouse it has been used, who is the user it has been executed, okay, and what time it is executed. Okay, but for every query there will be a query ID and a session ID will get created. Session ID is nothing but, so if you see the session ID, but I'm right now into only one session, right? So this session will have only one session ID all the time. Okay, so that's the reason you could see I run in only one worksheet, so it is all going to be same number. But query IDs, you see, it will be always unique. So you can search in a different ways. If you want to search queries based on a warehouse, SQL text, query ID, you can, all you need to do. So example, I could say SQL text, particular table name I'll give here. So it will give all the queries that particular team is involved in. So it is very easy to understand, right? So, and include client generated statement. That means from third party, some queries has executed, you can run it. Include queries executed by user tasks. So there is some tasks has been created. So task is nothing but some kind of orchestration tool Snowflake will provide, right? So you can do lot of exploration this side. Okay, back to slides. So we discussed warehouses on a summarized, right? So we discussed warehouses, how to bump up the warehouse sizes, and what is the use of multi-cluster warehouse, and what is a maximized mode and minimized mode, or maximized mode and auto scaling, and what is the benefits of having both maximized modes, and a single explanation for the certification people who are doing. So try to understand this. There will be definitely one question on this one. And Snowflake Virtual Warehouse concept is a very important concept while you're giving a SnowPro certification. Okay. So with that, Thank you so much for your attention and staying through over this video. And I believe this has enhanced your knowledge in Snowflake warehouses. Okay. If you have any questions, you can reach out to us and stay tuned to this page. We will be posting many other concepts in Snowflake to help you through to achieve the knowledge what you are looking for. Thank you so much.